The letter was heavy in my hands, its crisp paper a stark reminder of the weight of the words inside. I sat down at the kitchen table, the place where John and I used to share morning coffee, laughter, and dreams. Now, silence enveloped me, muffling the echoes of our life together. As I unfolded the letter, I felt my heart race, a drumbeat of fear pounding in my chest. "Dear Lisa," it began, and I could almost hear his voice, warm and reassuring, guiding me through the storm. But the words that followed shattered the calm. Hidden debts, a mountain of financial trouble lurking beneath the surface, threatening to engulf us. I blinked back tears, my mind racing. How could this happen? John had always been the rock, the one who took care of everything. I felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility crash over me like a tidal wave. I glanced at the clock. Sarah would be home soon, followed by David. How could I tell them that our world was about to change? The weight of my fear hung heavy, a shadow creeping into the corners of my heart. I needed to be strong for them, but the thought of facing this burden alone made me feel small, vulnerable. When Sarah burst through the door, her laughter filled the room, but it felt like a distant echo. She was a whirlwind of energy, her rebellious spirit shining bright. "Mom, you won't believe what happened at school today." But as she caught sight of my face, her excitement faded. "What's wrong?" "What?" "Nothing, sweetheart," I managed, forcing a smile that felt like a mask. "Just a long day." She narrowed her eyes, sensing the tension in the air. I could see the worry creeping into her mind, the way it always did when things were off kilter. "You sure? You look pale." "I'm fine," I insisted, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. David came in next, his thoughtful demeanor a stark contrast to his sister's chaos. He looked at me with those big, innocent eyes, and I felt my heart squeeze. I wanted to protect them, to shield them from the storm brewing in my mind, but the truth was, I was terrified. As days turned into weeks, the reality of our financial situation pressed down like a weight I couldn't lift. Bills piled up on the countertop, reminders of our impending doom. Each envelope felt like a ticking clock, counting down to a moment I wasn't ready to face. I tried to keep things normal, to maintain the facade of our happy family, but cracks began to show. Sarah's rebelliousness escalated, her laughter replaced with defiance. She started skipping school, hanging out with friends who didn't care about the rules. "You don't understand, Mom, you just don't get it," she shouted one evening. I felt her anger, raw and real, but I couldn't let her know the truth. "Sarah, please, just listen to me," I pleaded, but my words fell on deaf ears. David, on the other hand, withdrew into himself. I found him sitting in his room, drawing pictures of a family that looked perfect, smiling, carefree, blissfully unaware of the storm raging outside. It broke my heart to see him like this, but I didn't know how to reach him. Sleepless nights turned into restless days. My mind spiraled into an abyss of worry and doubt. I caught myself staring at John's photo that hung on the wall, his smile a beacon of hope. "What would you do?" I whispered to the empty room. I could almost hear his voice, urging me to stay strong, to find my footing amidst the chaos. Yet every time I thought about reaching out for help, shame washed over me like a cold tide. What would people think? I felt trapped in my own mind, the walls closing in. I wanted to scream, to let it all out, but I forced myself to hold it together. After all, I had to be the anchor for my children. But the more I tried to hide the truth, the more it festered beneath the surface. Tension grew, thickening the air around us. I could feel it in the silence that filled our home. The unspoken words hanging like a heavy fog. I was losing them, losing myself. "Why can't you just be normal?" Sarah yelled one day, frustration spilling over. "You act like everything's fine when it's not." Her words cut deep, and I felt the heat of tears prickling at my eyes. "I'm doing my best," I shot back, my voice rising in an attempt to regain control. But control was slipping away. As the days dragged on, I realized my silence only deepened the divide within our family. I was suffocating under the weight of unresolved fears and unspoken truths. The stakes were high, and I stood at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take. Should I confront the truth, or continue to hide it, hoping it would somehow resolve itself? The panic began to creep in, a familiar foe gnawing at my insides. I could feel it building, an eruption waiting to happen. Then, during a family dinner, it finally broke free. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands, but the words wouldn't come. It was as if a dam had burst. My chest tightened, and before I knew it, I was gasping for air, the room spinning around me. "Mum!" Sarah's voice pierced through the haze as she rushed to my side, her earlier anger replaced with concern. In that moment of vulnerability, I realized I couldn't face this alone. I had to confront the truth. All eyes were on me, and I felt the weight of their expectations pressing down. The air was thick with unspoken fears, and I knew that I had to find my voice, to share my burden with my family. This was my breaking point, a moment that would change everything. I took a deep breath, looking into their eyes, searching for strength. "I need to tell you something," I began, my voice trembling yet resolute. "It's time to unveil the truth." And just like that, the storm was about to break. I felt the weight of their eyes on me, each gaze a mixture of confusion and concern. I had shielded them from the storm for too long, and now it was time to pull back the curtain. "John, he left us with debts," I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. Saying it out loud felt like dragging a heavy anchor from the depths of the ocean. "There are bills we can't pay. I didn't know how to tell you." A stillness settled over the room. I could see Sarah's brow furrow, her vibrant spirit dimmed momentarily by the harsh reality of our situation. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. David, who had been quietly observing, looked up from his plate, his innocent eyes wide with uncertainty. "I thought I could handle it," I continued, my heart racing. "I wanted to protect you both from this, but it's worse than I imagined. I'm scared." The admission felt liberating, yet terrifying. I had always been the strong one, the keeper of our family's dreams and hopes. Now, I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to plunge into the unknown. "I knew something was off," Sarah said, her voice rising with frustration. "You've been acting weird for weeks. Why didn't you just tell us?" "I thought I could sort it out first," I replied, the guilt washing over me like a cold wave. "I wanted to fix it before it affected you. I wanted to be the rock, like your father was." I could feel the tears pooling in my eyes, but I blinked them back, determined to stay composed. David, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. "Mum, what does this mean for us?" The innocence in his voice cut through my heart. I could see him trying to comprehend the gravity of the situation, and I wished I could shield him from it. "It means we might have to make some changes," I said softly. "We'll have to be careful with money. We might even have to move." The last words hung in the air, heavy and foreboding. I watched as Sarah's expression shifted from confusion to anger, her emotions bubbling to the surface. "Move? You can't be serious!" she exclaimed, her voice rising. "You're not going to throw away everything just because of him." "Sarah, it's not just about him. It's about us, our future," I responded, desperation creeping into my voice. "I'm trying to keep us afloat here." "By what? Hiding it?" She shot back, her hurt spilling over. "You think pretending things are fine is helping? It's not. It's tearing us apart." David shrank back, his small frame tense with confusion. I could see the fear in his eyes as he took in the escalating tension. "Mum, can't we just talk about it?" he said, his voice small but steady. "There has to be a way to fix this." "Talking isn't enough, David," Sarah interjected, her frustration boiling over. "We need action. We need to do something." I felt the walls closing in around me, the air thick and suffocating. I had opened the floodgates, and now the storm was raging. Their anger, their fear, it all felt justified. I had kept them in the dark, and now here we were, lost in the chaos of our emotions. "I'm so sorry," I said, my voice cracking. "I thought I was protecting you, but I see now that I was wrong." I felt the tears finally break free, cascading down my cheeks. "I just didn't want you to feel this pain." Sarah ran her hands through her hair, her frustration turning into something softer. "Mum, we want to help. Just let us in." David nodded, his eyes wide with understanding. "We're a family, right? We can figure this out together." Their words wrapped around me like a warm blanket, igniting a flicker of hope within. Maybe, just maybe, we could face this storm together. "You're right," I said, wiping my tears. "We need to work as a team. I don't have all the answers, but we can tackle this together." Sarah took a deep breath, her anger subsiding. "So what do we do now?" I thought for a moment, weighing our options. First, we need to sit down and look at our finances. We have to understand the full picture. Then, we can make a plan. Can we cut back on some things? David suggested, his innocence shining through. Like the takeaway pizzas? We can make meals together instead. I chuckled lightly, the image of our family cooking in the kitchen brightening the mood. That sounds like a great idea, David. We could even make it a fun family night. Yeah, Sarah chimed in, her spirit returning. We could have a pasta night. And I'll teach you both how to make my secret sauce. I smiled through my tears, feeling the tension slowly dissipate. Sounds perfect, love. As we began to outline our plan, I felt a weight lift. The storm was still there, but now we were facing it together. We talked about budgeting, cutting unnecessary expenses, and finding ways to support each other. I'll look for a part-time job, I said, my voice steadying. It might help ease the financial strain. Wait, Mum, Sarah said, her eyes brightening. What if we did a bake sale? We could sell cookies and cakes. People love homemade stuff. That's brilliant, David exclaimed, his enthusiasm infectious. I felt a surge of pride. These kids were resilient. They were willing to fight alongside me. Let's do it, I said, my voice stronger. We'll make it through this. As we continued to brainstorm ideas, I realized this was more than just about finances. It was about rebuilding our family, strengthening the bonds that had begun to fray. We were navigating uncharted waters, but together we could find our way back to calm seas. And in that moment, I felt a flicker of faith rekindle within me. We could weather this storm. We could heal, grow, and emerge stronger than before. Together, we would face whatever came next, hand in hand. As the evening unfolded, a sense of purpose settled among us like the soft glow of candlelight. Each idea we tossed around felt like a stepping stone, guiding us closer to solid ground. All right, let's set a date for the bake sale, I said, pulling out a dusty calendar from the drawer. How about next Saturday? That gives us a week to prepare. Perfect. We can start baking on Friday, Sarah suggested, her enthusiasm rekindled. I'll take charge of the cookies. Everyone loves those chocolate chip ones. And I'll help, David piped up, his eyes shining with excitement. I can do the brownies. They'll be the best anyone's ever tasted. I couldn't help but smile at their contagious energy. All right then, it's settled. We have our plan. I felt a warmth spread through me. The storm that had once felt insurmountable was beginning to feel manageable, a series of tasks we could tackle together. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. The kitchen became our command center. Flour dust danced in the air like tiny fairies, and laughter echoed off the walls as we melted chocolate and mixed batter. Mum, I think we've got enough cookies to feed an army. Sarah laughed, her hands covered in dough. Or at least enough to feed the neighborhood, I replied, my heart lifting with each shared moment. It felt as if we were stitching the fabric of our family back together, one cookie at a time. On Friday evening, we finally had our first batch ready. The smell wafted through the house, a sweet reminder of the joy that could still exist amidst our troubles. Let's taste test, David exclaimed, reaching for a warm cookie. Wait, let me grab some milk, Sarah chimed in, her voice bubbling with excitement. I watched them, my heart swelling. They were resilient, turning a challenge into a cherished memory. As we sat around the table, cookies in hand, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. You both have no idea how much this means to me, I said, my voice thick with emotion. We're not just baking, we're building something together. Yeah, like a fortress against the world, David declared, taking a big bite and grinning with crumbs dusting his cheeks. Exactly, I chuckled, wiping away my tears. It was moments like these that reminded me of our strength. We were banding together, not just to face our financial struggles but to reinforce our family bond. But as the days rolled on, the reality of our situation loomed larger. The bills piled up, reminders of John's absence and the weight of our new normal. I tried to keep the spirits high, but the anxiety gnawed at me. I didn't want to show weakness, yet the burden felt heavier each day. On the morning of the bake sale, the sun peeked through the clouds, a sign of hope. We set up a table in front of our house, adorned with brightly colored posters and an array of baked goods. Sarah had even created a sign that read, "Cookies for a Cause." As the traffic passed by, I felt nervousness creep in. What if no one stopped? What if all our efforts went unnoticed? "Mom, look!" Sarah exclaimed, her eyes wide. A couple of neighbors were walking towards us, curiosity etched on their faces. "Hello!" I called out, trying to sound upbeat. "Would you like to buy some cookies?" They smiled and picked up a few items, chatting with us about their week. As they walked away, the first few dollars exchanged hands, and my heart leapt with gratitude. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. More people began to trickle in, families, friends, and even a few familiar faces from the community. Each person who stopped by brought encouragement, a sense of belonging. "These look amazing," one neighbor said, picking up a tray of brownies. "I can't wait to try them." As the morning passed, laughter filled the air. I watched Sarah and David interact with our customers, their confidence blooming. "Thank you so much. Every penny helps," David said, beaming. But then, as the crowd began to thin, I noticed a familiar face approaching. It was John's sister Lisa. My heart sank. What is she doing here? I thought, anxiety creeping in like a shadow. "Hi," she said, her voice hesitant. "I saw the bake sale from the road. I thought I'd stop by." "Thanks for coming," I replied, my tone cautious. "We're just trying to raise a bit of money." "I know," she interrupted, her eyes searching mine. "I came to talk about John. I think we need to discuss what's been happening." The air thickened, tension palpable. "Now? Here?" I stammered, glancing at the kids. They were consumed with packing up leftover cookies, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing. "Can we step aside for a moment?" she asked, her gaze firm. Reluctantly, I nodded. The last thing I wanted was to disrupt the fragile positivity we had built. "Let's go to the side of the house." As we moved out of earshot, I felt my heart racing. "What is there to discuss, Lisa?" I asked, crossing my arms defensively. "He's gone. He made his choice." "That's just it," she replied, her voice cracking. "He's struggling too. I don't think he wanted it to end this way." Her words hit me like a slap. I couldn't let myself feel sympathy for him, not now. "He left us with nothing. Do you think I want to hear excuses?" "I'm not making excuses," she pressed, her expression softening. "I just think he needs help. Maybe we could still reach out to him." "Why would we do that?" I shot back, my voice rising. "He abandoned us when we needed him most. I'm not going to drag my kids into more chaos." "But they deserve to know their father," Lisa said, her eyes pleading. "You can't shield them forever." I felt the tension crackle in the air, my emotions swirling. "You don't understand. I'm trying to protect them from pain." Lisa sighed, her shoulders slumping. "And in doing so, you're isolating them. They need to process this, and so do you." Her words struck a nerve, echoing in my mind. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to remain calm. "What do you suggest, then? That we bring him back into our lives?" "I think it's worth considering," she replied softly, her voice steady. "But it's your decision. Just remember, you're not alone in this." As I stood there, the weight of her words pressed down on me. "You might want to talk to him. He needs family." I nodded slowly, my mind racing. "I'll think about it." When I returned to the table, Sarah and David were excitedly counting the money we'd raised. The joy in their eyes momentarily distracted me from the turmoil. "How much do we have?" I asked, forcing a smile. "Over 50 pounds, Sarah exclaimed. "We did it, Mum!" I wrapped my arms around them, a wave of love washing over me. "I'm so proud of you both." But as I held them close, I felt the weight of Lisa's words still lingering. The storm was far from over, but maybe it was time to face the winds head-on. Together, we would navigate these rough waters. We would find our way to calm seas, even if it meant charting a course through the stormy skies ahead. The days that followed were a blur of emotions. I felt like I was treading water, trying to keep my head above the waves. The bake sale had been a success, but the money raised barely scratched the surface of our financial woes. Each time I opened the mailbox, a fresh wave of anxiety washed over me, the bills staring back like hungry wolves. I had to remind myself to breathe, to find strength in the small victories. Sarah and David were thriving, their laughter a balm to my worried heart. I watched them play in the garden, their carefree spirits a stark contrast to the heaviness that lingered in the back of my mind. Each day, I made a deliberate effort to engage with them, to create moments of joy amidst the uncertainty. We would bake together, go for walks, and even have movie nights where we'd snuggle up with popcorn and their favorite films. In those moments, I clung to the hope that love could shield us from the storm. One evening, sitting on the porch, I gazed at the sunset, the sky painted in hues of orange and pink. It felt like a promise, a reminder that even the darkest nights give way to light. Sarah came and plopped down beside me, her hair catching the breeze. "Mum, do you think we can make a cake next?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Absolutely," I replied, feeling a rush of warmth. "What kind do you want?" "Chocolate, of course." She grinned, and I couldn't help but chuckle. "Maybe we can even decorate it like a castle." "Now that's a brilliant idea," I said, imagining layers of chocolate frosting and colorful sprinkles. It was these little conversations that reminded me we were still a family, still capable of dreaming together. But as the days turned into weeks, the shadow of John loomed larger. I found myself caught between the desire to protect my children and the realization that they would need to confront the truth eventually. The thought gnawed at my insides. I wanted to be their fortress, but what if I was building walls instead of bridges? One Saturday, I decided to take a leap. I invited Lisa over for tea, hoping we could reconnect, hoping she might help me navigate this tangled web of emotions. When she arrived, I noticed the tension in her posture, the way she hesitated before crossing the threshold. "Thank you for coming," I said, pouring her a cup of tea. "I thought it might be nice to talk." "It's good to see you," she replied, offering a small smile, but I could sense the weight behind her words. As we settled at the kitchen table, I took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about what you said, about John." Her eyes lit up with a flicker of hope. "Really? You're considering reaching out?" "I don't know," I admitted, feeling the knot in my stomach tighten. "Part of me wants to protect the kids from more hurt, but I also want them to know their father." "Lisa," I paused, collecting my thoughts. "What if he's still the same man who left us? I can't bear the thought of dragging them through that pain again." "I understand," she said softly, her gaze steady. "But people can change. Maybe he's been through his own struggles. Perhaps he needs us as much as we need him." Her words resonated, but doubt lingered like a shadow. What if he doesn't want to be found? What if he's moved on? "Then you can still find peace in knowing you tried," she replied gently. "But you have to decide what's best for you and the kids. It's your choice." The conversation lingered in my mind long after Lisa left. I watched the children play outside, their laughter dancing on the breeze. They were oblivious to the turmoil in my heart, and I wanted to keep it that way. But I couldn't ignore the truth any longer. The following week, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table again, the phone cradled in my hands. My heart raced as I dialed the number Lisa had given me. Each ring felt like a countdown, a moment of truth inching closer. What was I doing? I was about to open a door I wasn't sure I wanted to unlock. "Hello?" His voice was hesitant, filled with uncertainty, and I felt a rush of emotions. "John," I said, my voice trembling. "It's Lisa. I wanted to talk." "Lisa? Is everything okay?" He sounded concerned, and that threw me off. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "Things are complicated. The kids are asking about you." Silence hung between us, thick and heavy. "I don't want to hurt them," he finally said, his voice cracking. "I know," I replied, the weight of my words settling in. "But they deserve to know their father. They deserve the chance to understand." "I've made mistakes," he admitted, a hint of vulnerability in his tone. "But I want to be better. For them." My heart simultaneously ached and swelled. Was this genuine? Could he really change? "We can't just jump back into things. It'll take time," I warned, needing him to understand the gravity of what he was asking. "I understand," he said, and I could hear the sincerity. "I want to try." As we talked, I felt the walls I had built begin to crack. It was terrifying, yet liberating at the same time. Maybe this was a step toward healing, not just for him, but for all of us. By the time I hung up, I felt lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted. I had opened a door, and while it was still ajar, I could see a glimmer of hope peeking through. It wouldn't be easy, nothing worth having ever was. But I was willing to explore this new path, to find out what lay on the other side. The next day, as I watched Sarah and David play in the garden, I felt a rush of determination. We were going to navigate this together, as a family. I would guide them through the storm and teach them to embrace both the light and the darkness. We were stronger than our past, and together we would forge a brighter future. It was time to let the healing begin. The sun had barely risen when I found myself staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The weight of yesterday's conversation with John clung to me like a heavy cloak, the uncertainty swirling in my mind. I splashed cold water on my face, hoping to shake off the lingering doubt. A part of me felt exhilarated, while another part, the protective mother, was filled with apprehension. As I prepared breakfast, the scent of toast wafted through the air, mingling with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. I tried to focus on the simple act of making our favorite meal, but the thought of what lay ahead gnawed at me. Would I be a fool for letting him back into our lives? "Morning, Mum." Sarah bounded into the kitchen, her hair wild and untamed, an embodiment of youthful energy. She flung her arms around me, and I savored the moment. "What's for breakfast?" "Just the usual, love," I replied, forcing a smile that felt less than genuine. "Toast and eggs. How about we make a cake later?" Her eyes lit up, and for a moment, the weight on my shoulders felt a touch lighter. "Yes, the castle cake." David shuffled in, rubbing his eyes. "What's happening?" "Cake plans, buddy," I said, trying to sound cheerful. But even as I spoke, a tight knot formed in my stomach. As we ate, I felt the tension simmering beneath the surface. Sarah chatted about her friends, her laughter a welcome distraction from my spiraling thoughts. But each smile she flashed reminded me of the delicate balance I was trying to maintain. I glanced at David, who was quietly observing us, as if sensing the storm brewing just out of sight. "Is everything okay, Mum?" he asked, his innocent gaze piercing through my facade. "Of course, sweetheart," I replied, but the words felt hollow. I needed to shield them from the reality I was grappling with, yet the truth weighed heavily in the air. After breakfast, I busied myself with chores, but the mundane tasks offered little solace. I scrubbed the countertops, but my mind was elsewhere, caught in a whirlwind of emotions. The phone call with John echoed in my mind, each word replaying like a broken record. Could he really be sincere? Would he truly put in the effort to rebuild our family? Later that afternoon, I decided to take the children to the park. Fresh air always did wonders for the soul. As we strolled along the path, I watched them play, their laughter ringing out like music. But as I sat on a bench, I couldn't shake the feeling of impending change. "Look, Mum, I can." "Swing higher!" Sarah shouted, her eyes sparkling with determination. I cheered her on, but my heart ached. She deserved a father who would watch her soar, not just in the playground, but in life. David joined her, and together they pushed each other higher, their joy palpable. Yet, as I watched them, a shadow flickered at the periphery of my thoughts. What if John's re-entry into our lives disrupted this fragile happiness? "Let's have a picnic," Sarah exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. "With cake." The idea momentarily lifted my spirits. "All right, let's get some snacks and head home." As we packed up our things, I caught sight of a couple nearby, their laughter echoing through the park. They were holding hands, sharing a moment of intimacy. A pang of longing hit me. I remembered the way John used to look at me, the warmth in his eyes that had faded over time. "Can we make sandwiches?" David asked, pulling me back to reality. "Of course we can make whatever you like," I replied, trying to ignore the heaviness in my chest. Back home, the smell of baking cake filled the kitchen. I mixed the ingredients while the children excitedly debated how to decorate it. But as I poured the batter into the pan, I felt a wave of doubt wash over me. Would John even want to be part of these moments? Would he fit into our lives again, or would he disrupt the delicate balance we'd created? "Can I help, Mum?" Sarah asked, her hands covered in flour as she bounced on her toes. "Absolutely." "You can help me mix," I said, grateful for the distraction. As we worked together, I tried to focus on the joy of the moment. But even as we giggled over spilled flour, the thought of John loomed large in my mind. I had opened a door, but what if he walked through it only to bring chaos with him? That evening, as we sat down to dinner, the atmosphere felt charged. I felt the weight of my decision hanging over the table. The children chatted animatedly, their joy a stark contrast to the unease that gripped me. "Can we eat cake after?" David asked, his eyes wide with hope. "Of course," I replied, forcing a smile. "It's a special day." After dinner, we gathered in the living room. The cake sat proudly on the table, adorned with colorful sprinkles. As we sang "Happy Birthday," even though it was no one's birthday, laughter filled the room. But even amidst the joy, I felt a tension, a barrier between us that I couldn't quite name. "Let's cut it," Sarah said, her excitement bubbling over as she reached for the knife. As I sliced through the cake, I couldn't help but think of the metaphorical layers we were all navigating. Each slice represented a choice, a decision that could either lift us or bring us crashing down. Just as I handed out the pieces, my phone buzzed on the table. My heart raced as I glanced at the screen. It was him, John. "Should I answer?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Who is it?" Sarah asked, her eyes darting to the phone. It's your dad," I said, the words feeling foreign on my tongue. The room fell silent, the laughter evaporating like mist. David's eyes widened, filled with confusion. "Is he coming back?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their expectations resting on my shoulders. "I don't know, sweetheart, but I have to talk to him." "Can we go to the park again?" Sarah suggested, her voice tinged with hope. "Of course we can do that," I said, my heart breaking. "Just give me a moment, okay?" As I walked to the other room, the tension crackled in the air. I stepped into the hallway, closing the door behind me, the barrier between the chaos outside and the storm brewing within me. I hesitated, finger hovering over the screen. Would this be the moment that changed everything? I pressed answer and took a deep breath. "Hello?" My voice quivered. "Lisa," John said, his tone cautious. "I've been thinking about what you said." I felt a rush of emotions, hope, fear, and uncertainty all tangled together. "And? I want to meet. I need to see you and the kids." My heart raced. "When?" "Soon. I need you to trust me." Trust. The very thing he'd shattered. "It's not that simple." "I know," he replied, his voice softening. "But I want to try. For all of us." As I stood there, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a tumultuous journey. The weight of the past loomed large, but perhaps, just perhaps, there was a path toward redemption. With a shaky breath, I replied, "Okay, but it won't be easy." "I understand," he said, genuine concern threading through his words. I hung up, my heart pounding. The tension inside me was a living thing, a storm brewing on the horizon. As I returned to the children, I felt a mix of fear and hope. I had opened a door, and now we would walk through it together. The path ahead was uncertain, but I knew one thing for certain. We were ready to face whatever lay ahead, together. The next morning dawned with a muted light filtering through the curtains, casting soft shadows in the kitchen. I stood at the counter, the familiar rhythm of brewing coffee grounding me amidst the chaos of thoughts swirling in my mind. As the aroma filled the room, I felt the warmth of hope flickering like a candle flame, fragile yet persistent. "Morning, Mum!" Sarah's voice rang out, bright and cheerful, piercing through my contemplations. She bounced into the room, her hair a wild halo of curls, a reflection of her vibrant spirit. "What's for breakfast?" "Just the usual, sweetheart. Toast and eggs," I replied, trying to match her enthusiasm. I cracked the eggs into the pan, the sizzle a comforting sound, yet my thoughts drifted back to the conversation with John. "Can we have pancakes instead?" she pleaded, her eyes wide with expectation. "All right, let's make pancakes," I said, my heart warming at her excitement, "but you'll have to help." "Yay!" She clapped her hands, her joy infectious, and I couldn't help but smile. As we whisked the batter together, I felt a shift within me. The act of creating something together, something delicious, felt like a small act of defiance against the storm brewing outside our kitchen. Perhaps this was the kind of normalcy we needed, a chance to reclaim our joy, if only for a moment. David wandered in as I flipped a pancake. "Can I have a big one?" he asked, his voice filled with innocence. I chuckled softly. "Of course you can." You'll need the energy for the park today. Are we going to see Dad? He asked, his tone cautious. My heart clenched. We'll see, love. Just focus on enjoying today, I said, choosing my words carefully. I wanted to shield them, but I also needed them to understand that life was a complex tapestry, woven with both joy and sorrow. After breakfast, we gathered our things, ready for a day at the park. The sun broke through the clouds, filling the world with golden light. I watched Sarah and David run ahead, their laughter ringing like music, a sweet reminder of the innocence I was determined to protect. As we arrived at the park, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. It was the same park where John and I had taken them countless times, where memories lingered like the scent of freshly cut grass. My heart ached as I thought of how it used to be, but I pushed those thoughts aside. Today was about them. Look, Mum, I can climb the jungle gym, Sarah shouted, her adventurous spirit shining through. I nodded, my heart swelling with pride as she scaled the structure with ease, her laughter echoing high above. David joined her, his cautious nature slowly melting away as he climbed beside her. I sat on a bench, watching them, feeling my heart rise and fall like the tide. They were growing, becoming independent, and yet I felt the weight of my decisions heavy on my shoulders. Can I push the swing? David asked, glancing back at me with wide eyes. Of course, just be careful, I replied, my voice filled with warmth. As he took off toward the swings, I felt a pang of longing for a simpler time, a time when everything felt safe and secure. As the sun climbed higher, I took a moment to breathe, to collect my thoughts. Maybe I could prepare myself for the conversation with John. Perhaps I'd take the children to the park more often, create memories that would remind them of the love that still existed, even amidst the uncertainty. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. My heart raced as I fished it out of my pocket. It was a message from John. Can we meet today, just for a little while? I hesitated, glancing at the children, their joy radiating like the sun above. What would this mean for them? For me? I took a deep breath, letting the moment settle in my mind. Hey, kids, I called out. How about we have a picnic here? I'll go grab some snacks from the car. Yay! They shouted in unison, their excitement palpable. As I walked to the car, I felt a mix of emotions swirling within me, uncertainty battling hope like two warriors clashing in my heart. I grabbed the picnic blanket, some sandwiches, and fruit, trying to focus on the moment rather than the looming conversation. Once back, I laid out the spread on the grass, and soon we were laughing and sharing stories, the worries of yesterday fading into the background. As we enjoyed our picnic, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The laughter of my children was a balm to my soul, reminding me of the strength we had as a family. In this moment, even with the uncertainty of the future, we were whole. Later, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, I knew I had to face the music. Kids, I said, my voice steady, I'm going to meet your dad, just for a little while. David looked concerned. Will he stay? I don't know, sweetheart, I replied, my heart aching at the innocence of his question, but I think it's important to give him a chance. For us. Okay, Sarah said, her voice small. I hope he's nice. He will be, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure. But no matter what, we're a team, all right? Always, David said, and Sarah nodded vigorously. With their unwavering support, I felt a flicker of courage ignite within me. I stood, brushing off the grass from my legs, and held their hands tightly as we made our way back to the car. As we drove home, I glanced at the children in the rearview mirror. Their faces were filled with hope and expectation, and I knew I had to embody that hope for them. Regardless of the outcome, we would pull through together. The evening air was cool as we arrived home. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my decisions settle in. I had opened the door, and now we would walk through it together, facing whatever came next with strength and love. With faith, we would find our way. The evening sun cast long shadows across the living room as I paced back and forth, my hands fidgeting with the hem of my sweater. It felt like the walls were closing in, each tick of the clock amplifying the tension in the air. John would be here any minute, and the butterflies in my stomach were anything but comforting. I stole a glance at the kids, who were busy drawing in the living room, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just beyond the threshold. As the door creaked open, I felt my heart leap into my throat. Sarah and David paused, their crayons frozen mid-stroke. John stepped inside, his figure silhouetted against the fading light. I could see the weariness etched on his face, the burden of his choices heavy on his shoulders. He'd always been the one to carry the weight of our family, but now the scales had tipped. "Hey, kids," he said softly, his voice a mix of warmth and uncertainty. They rushed to him, their little arms wrapping around his legs, and for a moment, it felt like we were whole again. "Daddy!" Sarah squealed, her laughter ringing like a bell, but I could see the flicker of doubt in her eyes. David clung to his father's side, his expression a mixture of joy and apprehension. "Can we go to the park again?" David asked, hope shining through his innocence. John's gaze flickered to me, searching for reassurance. "Maybe later, buddy," he replied, his voice steady. "I'd like to talk to your mom first, if that's all right." "Okay," David said, though the confusion lingered in his eyes. "Why don't you two go finish your drawings? I'll call you when we're done," I suggested, trying to keep my tone light. They nodded, scampering away, leaving John and me alone in the dim light of our once happy home. I took a deep breath, the air thick with unsaid words. "We need to talk," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "Yeah, I know," he replied, running a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry, Lisa. I should have told you about the debts sooner. I thought I could handle it." The weight of his apology hung between us, heavy and suffocating. "Handling it alone isn't what family is for, John. We're supposed to face things together," I said, my heart racing. "You've put us all at risk. I had no idea how deep it went." "I didn't want to worry you," he said, his eyes pleading for understanding. "I thought I could fix it before it got this far." "By hiding it?" "Hey," I shot back, frustration bubbling to the surface. "You think that's how you protect us? By keeping me in the dark?" He looked down, shame washing over his features. "I thought I was being strong. I thought I could shield you." "Strong? Or scared?" I pressed, my voice rising. "You didn't trust me enough to share your burdens. You made decisions without me, and now we're paying the price." Silence filled the space between us, thick and suffocating. I could feel the anger coursing through my veins, but beneath it lay hurt. I had relied on John as my rock, my source of strength. Now I felt unmoored, drifting in a sea of uncertainty. "I know I messed up," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I want to make it right. I want to fix this, for all of us." "Fix it how?" I asked, the bitterness lacing my words. "You can't just wave a magic wand and make everything okay. We have to deal with the consequences of your choices, and it's not just about money, John. It's about trust. I'll do whatever it takes," he said, urgency creeping into his voice. "I'll get a second job. I'll cut back on everything. I promise. And how long can you keep that up?" I shot back, my pulse racing. "You can't just bury yourself in work and expect us to forget. We need you here, present, not just physically. We need to rebuild what's been broken." He flinched at my words, and I felt a pang of guilt cut through me, but the truth needed to be spoken. "I know," he said, the weight of his defeat evident. "I'm willing to do the work. I want to go to counseling together, as a family. I want to fix this, Lisa." Counseling. The word hung in the air, a glimmer of hope mingled with uncertainty. "You really think we can mend this? That we can rebuild the trust?" "I believe we can," he replied earnestly. "It won't be easy, but I'm willing to fight, if you are." I searched his eyes, looking for the sincerity that had once drawn me to him. Beneath the layers of regret, I saw a flicker of the man I had fallen in love with. "Fighting means being honest, John. No more secrets, no more hiding. We face everything, together, no matter how difficult it gets." "I promise," he said, his voice firm. "I'll be open, I'll be accountable. For you, for the kids." And just like that, a fragile thread of hope began to weave through the cracks in our foundation. It wouldn't be easy, I knew that. But the possibility of redemption shimmered in the distance, like a lighthouse guiding us back to shore. As the weight of the world pressed down on my shoulders, I felt a surge of strength rise within me. Together we could navigate this storm. Together we would find our way back. "All right," I said, my voice steady. "Let's take it one step at a time. We owe it to ourselves and to the kids." John nodded, relief flooding his features. "Together, together," I echoed, feeling the warmth of that promise settle in my heart. It was a small step, but one toward the healing we desperately needed. And for the first time in weeks, I felt the flicker of hope grow brighter, illuminating the path ahead. The next morning arrived with a soft light filtering through the kitchen window. I stood by the kettle, watching the steam rise, feeling the warmth against my skin. It was a comforting ritual, one I had cherished in quieter times. Today, however, the aroma of coffee mingled with a sense of uncertainty. As the kettle whistled, I poured the water over the grounds and closed my eyes, drawing in a deep breath. This was my moment of clarity, a chance to gather my thoughts before the day unfolded. "Morning, Mum." Sarah's voice cut through my reverie, bright as the sunshine spilling into the room. She bounded in, her hair a wild halo of curls. "Can I help with breakfast?" "Of course, sweetheart," I replied, my heart swelling with the familiar warmth of motherhood. As she grabbed a bowl, I felt a pang of gratitude. No matter how stormy the seas grew, this girl still found joy in the smallest things. "Can we have pancakes?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Pancakes it is." I smiled, but there was a twinge of sadness in my heart. How could I shield her from the weight of our reality? David wandered in, rubbing his eyes, still half asleep. "Did someone say pancakes?" he mumbled, a sleepy grin breaking across his face. "Yep, you know it," I replied, feeling a flicker of normalcy return. A bit of laughter and a stack of pancakes could cover a multitude of worries, if only for a moment. As we worked together in the kitchen, the atmosphere shifted slightly. Laughter filled the air, and the sound echoed like a gentle reminder that we still had our moments, our family bonds. The kids flipped through their school books, their chatter a backdrop to my thoughts. I was determined to keep the conversation with John fresh in my mind. After breakfast, I took the opportunity to sit down with the kids. "I know things have been a bit rough lately," I began, my voice steady. "But we're going to work on things as a family. That means being honest and supporting each other." Sarah glanced up, her expression a mix of curiosity and concern. "What do you mean, Mum?" "Your dad and I had a long talk last night. There are some problems we need to face together, but I want you to know that we're committed to fixing things." David furrowed his brow. "Is everything okay?" "It will be," I assured them, feeling a wave of confidence wash over me. "We just need to be patient and work together." "Like teamwork?" Sarah chirped, her enthusiasm infectious. "Exactly," I said, my heart swelling. "Teamwork means we face challenges together and that we trust one another." The kids nodded, and I could see the flickers of understanding in their eyes. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. As the day wore on, I found myself looking for ways to put our newfound commitment into action. I reached for the phone, hesitating for just a moment before dialing a local family counselor. This was a step into the unknown, but I felt a sense of urgency. We needed guidance, and I was ready to seek it. "Hello, this is Lisa," I said, my voice steady despite the butterflies in my stomach. "I'm looking to schedule a family session." The voice on the other end was warm and welcoming, and I felt the tension begin to lift as we talked through options. It was a small step, but it felt monumental. When I hung up, I felt a surge of hope. I turned to find John in the doorway, leaning against the frame, his expression curious. "What's got you smiling?" "I made an appointment for us with a counselor," I said, unable to hide my excitement. His eyes widened slightly. "You did? That's great!" "It's a start," I replied, feeling the weight of my decision settle in. "We can't fix things overnight, but we can work on it together." "Thank you for taking the initiative," he said, his voice earnest. "I'm ready to do whatever it takes." "Good," I replied, feeling a wave of relief. "Because we need to be open about everything." "Agreed," he said, stepping closer. "I'm still figuring out how to navigate all this, but I know I need to be honest with you and the kids." Just then, Sarah burst back into the room, her arms laden with drawings. "Look what I did! It's us, happy and together." I knelt down, admiring her artwork. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. This is exactly how we're going to be, happy and together." John leaned down to look, his expression softening as he took in the innocence of her creation. It was a reminder of what we were fighting for. "Can we put it on the fridge?" David asked, his excitement palpable. "Absolutely," I replied, pinning it up with a magnet. As I stood back, I felt a swelling of hope. This was our new beginning, our chance to rediscover what it meant to be a family. Over the next few days, we embraced our new routine. Dinner became a time for sharing, laughter filling the air as we discussed our days. The kids seemed lighter, their worries momentarily lifted. John began to help more around the house, and I could see the effort he was putting in. But beneath the surface, I could feel the tension rising like a storm. John's guilt lingered, and I knew it would take more than just good intentions to mend our wounds. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, I caught him staring into his plate, lost in thought. "What's on your mind?" I asked, breaking the silence. He looked up, his eyes filled with a mix of sadness and determination. "I'm just thinking about how to make up for everything. I want to show you that I can be the husband you deserve." "John, it's not just about what you do," I said, my voice firm yet gentle. "It's about being present, rebuilding trust. We need to be vulnerable with each other." "I know," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's hard for me to open up, but I'm trying." "Trying is good," I said, reaching for his hand across the table. "But we need to dig deeper. No more hiding." He nodded, a flicker of determination igniting in his eyes. "Okay, I'll share more, I promise." "Good," I said, feeling the weight of my words. "Together, we can navigate this. We can discover who we are and who we want to be." As the days unfolded, we found ourselves facing the deeper issues that had lingered in the shadows. Conversations grew richer and emotions ran deeper. We began to peel back the layers, exposing fears and vulnerabilities. Each discussion was a step toward healing. With every revelation came a sense of discovery. I found strength in our shared truths, and John began to reveal parts of himself I had longed to see. Hope flickered in the distance, and I knew that together we would continue to walk this path of healing, one honest step at a time. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm glow through our kitchen window. Dinner had become our sanctuary, a familiar rhythm soothing the chaos of life outside. As I stirred the pot of stew, the scent wafted through the air, mingling with laughter from the living room. Sarah and David were competing over who could tell the best joke, their voices rising and falling like a song of innocence. I couldn't help but smile as I listened, my heart swelling with warmth. "Why did the chicken cross the road?" David asked, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "To get to the other side," Sarah replied, bursting into giggles. "Classic," I called out, feeling the moment wrap around us like a comforting blanket. John entered the kitchen, his hands shoved in his pockets, an easy smile on his face. "What's all this noise?" he asked, feigning ignorance. "Just a bit of healthy competition," I replied, stirring the pot with purpose. "Care to join in?" He leaned against the counter, a flicker of amusement dancing in his eyes. "I'm terrible at jokes." "Maybe you just need to practice," I said, teasingly. "What's your best one?" "I'll save you from that," he replied, laughing, "but I can help serve dinner." As he grabbed the plates, I felt a rush of gratitude. His willingness to dive into the mundane tasks made it clear we were building something anew. We were rediscovering the simple joys that kept us bonded. Dinner was a celebration of our small victories. We shared stories, some lighthearted, others laced with vulnerability. David spoke about his upcoming football match, excitement bubbling over. "We're going to crush them," he proclaimed, his confidence infectious. "And what about teamwork?" I chimed in, grinning at him. "Always," he replied, his voice steady. Sarah jumped in, her enthusiasm palpable. "Mum, can we all go to watch his game?" "Of course," I said, glancing at John, who nodded in agreement. "Family support is key." The conversation shifted, and I felt the familiar tension in the air. It was still there, a ghost haunting our moments. But tonight, it felt lighter, almost manageable. "Can we talk about the counselor's session next week?" I asked, careful but direct. John's expression changed, his smile fading slightly. "Yeah, I've been thinking about that," he said slowly. I reached for his hand, grounding us in the moment. "It's important, John. We need to be honest about where we are. It's part of moving forward." "I know," he replied, his voice firm but laced with uncertainty. "I've got a lot to work through." "We all do," I said, squeezing his hand. "But we can't do it alone. It's about lifting each other up, like a team." The kids nodded, their eyes wide, absorbing every word. Can we make a family motto? Sarah suggested, her imagination sparking. What do you have in mind? I asked, intrigued. Something like, "Together we rise," she exclaimed, her face alight with inspiration. That's perfect, David added, his excitement growing. We can all say it before the match. I laughed, the thought of our little family rallying together bringing warmth to my heart. All right, let's make it our motto. Together we rise. As we repeated it together, a sense of unity settled over us. We were a team. We would face the challenges together, not just as individuals, but as a family. Later that evening, after the kids had been tucked into bed, John and I sat together on the sofa. The silence was comfortable, a testament to our growing bond. Thanks for tonight, he said quietly, his gaze focused on the flickering candlelight. It felt good to laugh. It did, I replied, my heart swelling with hope. We're finding our rhythm again. He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. I've been reflecting on everything. It's hard to admit, but I've not been honest with myself, let alone with you. Honesty is the first step, I said, my voice steady. We're in this together. I know. I just want to be the man you deserve, he said, vulnerability etched on his face. I've let you down. John, we all stumble. It's how we rise that matters, I reassured him. You're here now, and that's what counts. He nodded, his expression softening. I want to be better, for you and the kids. It's time I let go of the guilt. That's a brave step, I encouraged him. Let's work through it together. No more hiding. As he spoke, I felt a shift in the atmosphere, an unspoken understanding that we were both ready to confront the past and embrace the future. The next week arrived with anticipation. The session with the counselor loomed ahead, a beacon of hope amidst our turmoil. I watched as the kids prepared for David's football match, their energy infectious. As we arrived at the field, I felt a surge of pride watching David gear up, his face a mask of determination. You've got this, I cheered, my voice rising above the crowd. Thanks, Mum, he shouted back, his confidence shining bright. John stood beside me, his hand resting on my back. They're amazing, he whispered, nodding toward the field. They really are, I replied, feeling a swell of gratitude. This is our family, united. As the game unfolded, cheers erupted around us. The children played with heart, each pass and tackle echoing the commitment we had made as a family. When David scored the winning goal, the air erupted with jubilation. I jumped up, clapping and cheering, my heart soaring. That's my boy! I shouted, tears of joy welling in my eyes. John pulled me into a hug, our laughter mingling in the air. We did it together, he said, his voice filled with pride. As we celebrated, I realized we were not just spectators but active participants in our family's journey. We were learning to rise, to overcome, and to embrace victory, one moment at a time. With every challenge we faced, we were learning the true meaning of resilience. We were evolving, transforming our struggles into strengths. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Together, we were rising, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. The following week brought a crispness to the air, a reminder that change was not just possible, it was essential. I stood by the window, watching as the leaves danced in the wind, their vibrant colors a testament to transformation. This was a season of renewal, not only outside but within our family. We were ready to confront the shadows that had lingered too long in our hearts. John and I sat in the waiting room of the counselor's office, the atmosphere buzzing with anxious energy. I glanced at him, his brow furrowed, and I reached for his hand. We'll get through this, I whispered, the warmth of my voice wrapping around us like a protective shield. He nodded, but I could see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. When our names were called, we rose, stepping into the room together. The counselor greeted us with a reassuring smile, inviting us to sit. I felt the weight of our burdens pressing down, but I also felt the flicker of hope igniting within me. We were taking a step forward. As we began to share our stories, I saw John's walls slowly crumble. He spoke of his fears, the guilt that had been a constant companion. I didn't want to burden you, he admitted, looking down at his hands. I thought I could handle it alone. None of us are meant to walk this path alone, I replied, my voice steady. We're a team. It's time to lean on each other. The counselor nodded in agreement, guiding us through our feelings, helping us untangle the mess of emotions. We could sense the healing starting, a gentle mending of wounds that had festered for too long. After the session, we walked to the car, the sun shining brightly above us. "That wasn't so bad," John said, a hint of relief in his voice. I smiled, knowing we had taken a significant step. "Just the beginning," I replied, my heart swelling with faith. "We have a long way to go, but we're on the right path." The following days felt lighter, our conversations more open and honest. We began to share our dreams again, the laughter returning to our home like a long-lost friend. As we prepared for the upcoming family outing, I watched Sarah and David bickering playfully in the living room. Their joy was infectious, a reminder that life still held beauty amidst the chaos. "Mom, can we bring snacks?" Sarah asked, bouncing on her toes, her excitement palpable. "Absolutely, but let's keep it healthy," I said, winking at her. "We've got to fuel those energy levels." "Fine, but only if I can bring my secret stash of chocolate," she pleaded, her smile brightening the room. "Deal!" I laughed, knowing that little indulgences were part of the balance we were learning to achieve. As we packed the car, I felt a surge of gratitude. We were building a new normal, one where love and laughter intertwined with the challenges we faced. At the park, the sun bathed us in warmth, the laughter of families surrounding us like a symphony. David raced ahead, his face determined as he challenged his sister to a race. "You're going down!" he shouted, a playful grin plastered on his face. "Not if I can help it," Sarah retorted, her competitive spirit igniting. I watched them, my heart swelling with pride. They were growing, learning resilience in their own ways. John joined me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "Look at them," he said, his voice soft. "They're amazing." "They are," I agreed, feeling the weight of our struggles lessen in the warmth of the moment. Later, as we sat in the grass enjoying our picnic, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We shared stories, laughter, and even moments of vulnerability. John spoke of his dreams for the future, igniting a spark of hope in my heart. "I want to start my own business," he shared, his eyes lighting up. "Something that truly reflects who I am." "Then let's make a plan," I replied, my excitement bubbling over. "We can do this together." As we discussed the possibilities, I could see the weight lifting from his shoulders. The fear that had once held him captive was being replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. The weeks turned into months, and with each passing day, we grew stronger. Our faith deepened, grounding us in a shared belief that we could overcome anything together. We learned to lean on God, to trust in His plan for our family. Our counseling sessions became a safe haven, a place where we could explore our feelings and confront our fears. We learned to communicate openly, to share our dreams and aspirations without hesitation. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing the vibrant colors of our love that had been dulled by the weight of unspoken words. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, I looked at my family, my heart full. "Let's take a moment to reflect on how far we've come," I suggested, my voice warm. John smiled, his eyes sparkling. "I'm grateful for this family," he said, his voice steady. "For the love and support we've found in each other," David chimed in, "and for all the fun times, like when I scored that goal. And our family motto," Sarah added, her excitement infectious. "Together we rise." We repeated it together, our voices harmonizing, each word a promise echoing through our home. In that moment, I knew we were on a journey of redemption, a path where faith and love guided us. We were learning to rise above our challenges, embracing the beauty of our imperfections. As we cleared the table, I felt a sense of fulfillment. We were not just a family surviving, we were thriving. We were stronger than our past, united by love and resilience. And as I tucked the kids into bed that night, I whispered a prayer of gratitude, knowing that together we could face whatever lay ahead. The following week arrived with bright promises, yet I felt the undercurrent of uncertainty swirling beneath the surface. As I brewed my morning tea, the steam tangled in the cool air, swirling like my thoughts. We had come so far, but the shadows of our past still loomed, casting doubt in the corners of my mind. John had taken on a part-time job, the first step toward his dream of starting a business. I admired his determination, but questions gnawed at me. Was he truly ready? Could we handle the financial strain that came with it? The fear of failure loomed over me like a dark cloud, threatening to dampen the light we had fought so hard to reclaim. "Mum, can we go to the park again today?" David asked, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. His innocence was a balm for my worries. "Of course, love. Let's make it a family day," I replied, forcing a smile. I didn't want my doubts to taint their joy. As the sun broke through the clouds, we packed a picnic, the smell of sandwiches and fresh fruit filling the air. Sarah bounced around, her laughter a melody that lightened my heart. "I'm going to beat you both at the obstacle course," she declared, her competitive spirit shining through. "Not if I can help it," David challenged, determination etched across his face. Watching them, I felt a flicker of hope. Children had a way of reminding us of life's simple joys. Yet, as we settled onto the grass, ready to enjoy our day, John's phone buzzed incessantly in his pocket. Each vibration felt like a reminder of the world we were trying to escape, a tether to the past we were battling to sever. "Just a moment, I need to take this," he said, stepping away. I watched him walk off, the weight of his absence palpable. The sun warmed my skin, but a chill crept into my heart. Minutes turned into an eternity. I glanced at Sarah and David, their excitement in stark contrast to the anxiety tightening my chest. When John returned, he looked different. A shadow had crossed his features, a hint of worry etched into his brow. "Everything okay?" I asked, concern lacing my voice. "Yeah, just work stuff," he replied too quickly, but I knew him better than that. The hesitation in his voice spoke volumes. We had promised to be open, yet the unspoken words hung between us like a fragile thread, threatening to snap. As the day wore on, I tried to shake the uneasy feeling, but it clung to me. We laughed, played, and even took silly pictures, but I couldn't shake the sense that something was off. The love and resilience we had worked so hard to build felt like it was teetering on the edge, and I was terrified of what would happen if it fell. Later that evening, as the kids settled into their beds, I watched them drift off, their faces peaceful and innocent. I slipped into the living room, finding John on the couch, staring at his phone with a furrowed brow. "John, can we talk?" He looked up, surprise etched across his features. "Is everything okay?" "I don't know, are you okay?" I pressed, my heart racing. He hesitated, glancing away. "It's just the job. It's not what I thought it would be. I'm feeling the pressure." "Pressure? Is it too much?" I asked, my voice steady yet soft. "I don't want to let you down," he admitted, his vulnerability disarming me. "You're not letting me down, but we have to face this together. You don't have to carry it all alone." He took a deep breath, the weight of his words heavy in the air. "I got a call today. They might have to cut my hours. I'm scared about what that means for us." Fear washed over me, a wave crashing upon the shore. I reached for his hand, squeezing tightly. "We've faced storms before, John. We can pull through this too, together." He nodded slowly, the flicker of hope returning to his eyes. "You're right. I just need to remember that." We spent the next hour talking, revisiting the plans we had laid for our future, intertwining our dreams like threads in a tapestry. The fear didn't vanish, but it felt less daunting when shared. As we made our way to bed, I felt a flicker of reassurance. We were not perfect, but we were committed to growth. Days turned to weeks again. Our journey was a winding road, but we were learning to navigate it together. Yet, just as I felt a glimmer of normalcy returning, the phone rang, shattering the quiet peace of our home. The voice on the other end was serious, and as John listened, his expression shifted, the color draining from his face. "What do you mean?" I felt my stomach drop. "John?" He put his hand over the receiver, his eyes wide with disbelief. "It's my father. He's had a heart attack." Time froze. The reality of it hit hard, crashing over us like a tidal wave. Suddenly, our worries felt so small compared to the weight of this news. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I don't know," he whispered, his eyes clouded with fear. "Let's go." "We'll figure it out together," I urged, the urgency of the moment sparking a fire within me. Gathering the kids, we explained as gently as we could, their innocent faces reflecting confusion and worry. "We need to be there for Grandpa," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. As we drove, the silence in the car was deafening, punctuated only by the sound of the engine. My heart ached for John, the burden of his family's struggles weighing heavily on his shoulders. When we arrived, the hospital loomed, Ahead, a stark reminder of the fragility of life. We rushed through the doors, the sterile smell of antiseptic filling my lungs. John's father lay in the hospital bed, frail and pale, a shadow of the man I remembered. I squeezed John's hand, grounding him as we approached. "Dad," John said softly, his voice cracking. His father's eyes flickered open, a mixture of recognition and fear. "John, I'm sorry." "Don't be. Just focus on getting better," John replied, his voice steady, but I could see the pain etched into his features. In that moment, I realized our family was not just facing the storms of our own making, but the legacy of struggles that had long existed before us. John's father's frailty reflected the burden of generations, and I knew we had to be the ones to break the cycle. As we navigated this new challenge, I felt a surge of purpose. Together, we would face the shadows, learning to embrace the light that came with faith and resilience. In the hours that followed, we rallied around John's father, sharing stories, laughter, and tears. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, love could shine through, illuminating the path ahead. As I watched John, I felt a renewed sense of hope. Together, we were weaving a new narrative, one that embraced both our struggles and our strength. And as I whispered a silent prayer, I knew that no matter what lay ahead, we would rise together, a testament to the power of family and faith. The hospital room was a cocoon of anxiety, the rhythmic beeping of machines a stark reminder of life hanging by a thread. John sat by his father's bed, his eyes a mix of worry and love, and I felt the weight of the moment settle over us like a heavy blanket. I squeezed his shoulder, silently promising to be his strength. "Dad, we're here," John whispered, his voice barely above a breath. "You're not alone." His father's gaze drifted toward us, a flicker of recognition, breaking through the haze of pain. "John, I didn't expect to see you." "I wouldn't be anywhere else," he replied, his voice steady, but I could see the tremor in his hands. It was a moment of vulnerability, a raw exposure of his heart, and I felt a surge of compassion for both of them. "Lisa, how are the kids?" his father asked, shifting his gaze to me. The concern in his voice was palpable, even in his frail state. "They're worried about you, but they're strong," I said, forcing a smile despite the tightening in my chest. "They want to see you get better." John's father nodded slowly, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I want to see them too." As we exchanged words, the room filled with stories of family, memories wrapped in laughter and warmth. I could see John's shoulders ease bit by bit, the burden of worry slowly lifting. It was a reminder that love could soften life's harshest blows. Just then, a nurse entered bright-eyed and efficient. "We're going to run some tests, but I promise we'll keep you updated," she said, her voice a soothing balm. "Thank you," I said, grateful for her kindness. I watched as John's father closed his eyes, the tension in his face relaxing for a moment. When the nurse left, I leaned closer to John. "You're doing so well, love. He needs you right now." "I know," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "It's just, I can't shake the fear of losing him." "None of us can," I whispered, "but we can be here for him. It's what family does." He nodded, determination creeping back into his gaze. The bond between father and son was palpable, a thread woven through years of shared experiences. I felt a surge of gratitude for this moment, the raw honesty that connected us all. As the hours wore on, the waiting room filled with family, each carrying their own worries, but united by a shared love. John's siblings arrived, their faces etched with concern, but there was a quiet strength in the room, a collective hope that coursed through us like electricity. We shared stories, laughter mingling with tears, and I could see John drawing strength from his family. "Remember the summer we spent at the lake?" his sister Emily said, a smile breaking through the tension. "Dad almost capsized the boat trying to show off. Or the time he swore he could catch that giant fish," John added, a grin breaking through his worry. "More like the fish caught him," Emily laughed, and soon the room filled with lightness, the heaviness of the situation shifting for a moment. The laughter faded, replaced by the reality of the situation as the doctor entered. I held my breath, the room falling silent. "John, we need to talk," the doctor said, his expression serious. My heart sank. "Is it bad?" John asked, his voice trembling. The doctor sighed, and I could see the weight of his words hanging heavily in the air. Your father's heart is weak. We'll need to monitor him closely. Surgery may be necessary. Necessary, I echoed, my heart racing. Yes, it's a risk, but without it, his chances of recovery are slim. John stared at the doctor, the world around us fading. What are the risks? Multiple, but it's the best chance we have, the doctor replied, his voice steady yet compassionate. I reached for John's hand, squeezing tightly, grounding him as his eyes filled with fear. We can face this together, I whispered, my heart racing alongside his. He nodded, the determination returning to his gaze. We'll do whatever it takes. The doctor left, and the room was heavy with unspoken fears. I could see John wrestling with uncertainty, his heart aching for his father. Lisa, he said, his voice breaking, what if we lose him? We won't, I replied firmly, meeting his gaze. We're a family. We'll fight for him. But fear hung in the air, a palpable presence. As we sat in the silence, John's father stirred, a faint smile breaking through the pain. I'm not ready to go yet, he murmured. Neither are we, John said, his voice steady. We're here for you, Dad. You're not alone. In that moment, I felt the weight of our struggles shift. It wasn't just about facing the fear of losing a loved one, but about embracing the strength that family brought. As night fell, I leaned against John, our fingers interlaced. The hospital's fluorescent lights buzzed softly, illuminating the path ahead. I whispered a prayer, asking for strength, for healing, for hope. The hours slipped by, punctuated by soft conversations and shared memories. Each word was a thread weaving us closer together, a testament to the love that could conquer even the darkest fears. The doctor returned, and I held my breath as he delivered the news. Your father is stable, but he will need the surgery. Let's do it, John said, his voice unwavering. As we prepared for the next steps, I felt a shift within us. We were not just a family facing a storm. We were warriors, ready to fight for one another. With each passing moment, I realized that even in the face of uncertainty, love had the power to heal. Together, we were building a legacy of resilience, a tapestry of hope that would carry us through whatever lay ahead. Faith and family intertwined, stronger than any burden we faced. As we huddled together, I felt the warmth of their presence, the strength of our bond wrapping around us like a safety net. And in that moment, I knew we would rise. Together. The hospital room was a sanctuary of hope, the air thick with the scent of antiseptic and the whispers of prayers. Days turned into a blur, but the moments spent with John's father anchored me. Each visit, a new chapter, a fresh wave of resilience washing over us. I watched as John transformed, the weight of uncertainty carving a new strength in him. Lisa, he said one afternoon, his voice low but steady as he sat beside his father. I'm not just scared for Dad, I'm scared for us. I reached for his hand, our fingers intertwining. We're in this together, I assured him. No matter what happens, we'll face it side by side. John's father opened his eyes, the tired gaze flickering between us. Your mother always said love makes you strong, he murmured, a faint smile ghosting his lips. Yeah, Dad, John replied, the tremor in his voice betraying the calm he tried to project. We're holding on to that love. The days passed, filled with laughter and tears. We shared stories, igniting memories that danced like sunlight through the dark. Each laugh was a beacon, a reminder that joy still existed, even in the depths of fear. Remember when you tried to teach me to ride a bike? John's sister Emily laughed one evening, bringing a flicker of life to the room. You fell right into the hedge, John chuckled, shaking his head. And you laughed so hard you nearly fell off your own bike. Yeah, but I didn't, Emily shot back playfully. In those moments, the air lightened, our spirits lifting with every shared memory. It was a testament to the strength of family, the bonds that sustained us through the hardest trials. But underlying the laughter was the weight of what lay ahead. The night before John's father was scheduled for surgery, I found myself unable to sleep. The ticking clock echoed in the silence, a reminder of the fragility of time. I slipped out of bed and made my way to the hospital, the cool night air wrapping around me like a shroud. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed softly, casting a gentle glow on the sleeping figures. I tiptoed to John's father's room, finding John already there. his head resting on his father's bed. I could see the lines of worry etched across his forehead, the depth of love evident in every crease. "Hey," I whispered, placing my hand on his shoulder. He stirred, looking up at me, eyes clouded with exhaustion. "I can't stop thinking about what could happen tomorrow." "We'll face it together," I said, my heart swelling with pride for his unwavering spirit. "Whatever the outcome, we'll be right here." John nodded, the tension easing slightly as he took a deep breath. "I just want him to know he's loved." "He knows," I assured him, leaning in to kiss his forehead. "Love has a way of breaking through, doesn't it?" As dawn broke, the hospital buzzed with activity. Nurses glided through the halls, their footsteps a rhythm of hope. The doctor arrived, his demeanor calm, yet firm. "It's time," he said, glancing at John and his father. The room fell silent, the gravity of the moment hanging heavily. John's father looked at us, his expression a mixture of fear and gratitude. "No matter what happens, I love you both." "We love you too, Dad," John replied, his voice wavering. I squeezed John's hand, grounding him as we exchanged a look that spoke volumes. This was our moment to stand strong, to embody the love that bound us. The nurses wheeled John's father away, and I held my breath, the silence of the corridor amplifying my fears. John's hand tightened around mine, a lifeline amidst the chaos. "We'll wait," he said, his voice steadying. "Whatever happens, we've got each other." We settled into the waiting area, a sea of anxious faces surrounding us. Hours crawled by, each minute feeling like an eternity. I glanced at John, who sat with his hands clasped together, eyes focused on the door. "Do you think he'll be okay?" he asked, vulnerability creeping into his tone. "Of course he will," I replied, uncertainty gnawing at my insides. "We're a family. We'll pull through this no matter what." Finally, the doctor appeared, a smile breaking through the seriousness etched on his face. "The surgery was a success," he said, and I felt a rush of relief wash over me. "Your father is stable and recovering." Tears brimmed in John's eyes, and he pulled me into a tight embrace. "We did it," he murmured. "He's going to be okay." As we made our way to his father's room, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. The journey had been long, but love had carried us through. John's father lay in the bed, eyes fluttering open as we entered. "You're here," he whispered, his voice hoarse but filled with warmth. "Always," John replied, his heart full. In that moment, I knew we had weathered the storm together. The bond that had grown between us was unbreakable, forged in the fires of love and faith. As we settled into the rhythm of healing, laughter returned to the house. Sarah and David brought life back into our home, their innocence a reminder of the joy that still existed. "Can we have a picnic?" Sarah asked one sunny afternoon, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Absolutely," I replied, the warmth of her enthusiasm lifting my spirits. We spread a blanket in the garden, laughter echoing as we shared sandwiches and stories. John's father joined us, his smile brighter than I'd seen in weeks. With every moment, the healing deepened, the love in our family weaving a tapestry of resilience and hope. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I looked around at my family, my heart overflowing. We had faced the darkness, and in doing so, had found our strength. "Together," I whispered, the word hanging in the air like a promise. Together we would rise. Together we would thrive. And with every challenge we would continue to grow, our love a beacon guiding us through the storms of life.